Welcome back to Decentralounge, brought to you by GlobalStake, your truly decentralized SOC 2 Type 2 certified institutional bare metal blockchain infrastructure provider. I'm your host, Ryan Hazinski, head of protocol partnerships, along with my co-host, Wyatt Clancy, our VP of growth. Today, we're joined by Lorenzo Barbantini, founder and CEO of Colossus Digital. Lorenzo brings a background that spans technology, entrepreneurship, and digital assets with a focus on how blockchain infrastructure and financial innovation are reshaping global markets. His work sits at the intersection of emerging technology and real-world adoption, exploring how decentralized systems can create new opportunities for investors, businesses, and institutions alike. Through Colossus Digital, Lorenzo is building a platform centered on advancing digital asset innovation and helping bridge the gap between traditional finance and the rapidly evolving on-chain economy. The firm is focused on identifying and supporting opportunities across the blockchain ecosystem while helping market participants better understand and engage with this new financial paradigm. Today, we'll talk about Lorenzo's journey into the blockchain industry, what inspired him to launch Colossus Digital, and how he sees the role of digital assets continuing to evolve in global finance. Lorenzo, welcome to Decentralounge. Why don't we just start off with sort of your backstory and how you got involved in this crazy industry that we all know and love?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So Ryan and Wyatt, thank you very much for having me. Every good blockchain or crypto entrepreneur, my story is one day I get approached by somebody who says, "Oh, I'd like you to meet this thing called Bitcoin." I was like, "Oh, what is it?" And it was a mining operation. So I set up a mining operation in Italy back in 2016. And it was the whole thing, solar panels, not connected, it was a real cyberpunk approach. And then I actually got really into the ethos of the whole blockchain, which is super interesting. And I think that still has, and that's, the kind of where we all started, which I think is it's a super great background that not many industries have, and we should actually cherish it because that's kind of going, and slightly it's being less and less. It's fading out, but I think now we're evolving, so it's very interesting. I've done the whole process. Lost all my Bitcoin on Mt. Gox, sold them 1 cent to the dollar, and 15 years later, and still. Now it could have been different, but regardless, super journey, super interesting. And then I kept on looking at it. I've always been doing something totally different. My background is in telecommunications, and I've been working in that space, building systems for large telco operators in Italy and in Europe, and globally. So I think that's. So there is tech. There's always been a tech element, and I think that's kind of my guiding. I'm not I'm not an engineer, but I love tech, and so I'm somebody that can have a conversation with an engineer, but of course I look at it from a different lens, and my lens is all about the business side of it, which I think is really makes always these jobs, the job very interesting. So that's how I got into it, and then I really didn't look at the industry for a while, and then as these things happen, the second generation Barbantini tells me, "Hey, Daddy, you got to look at what's happening here. This stuff is exploding," and so this was 6 years ago. I started looking back at the market, and then I got together with my co-founders, and there's 4 of us, which is quite interesting because we're well assorted. We have a Swiss lawyer. We have a engineer, who's of course our CTO. We have a traditional finance, Andrea. He's background in statistical arbitrage, and he's always worked in traditional finance. And then there's me, and I'm the one, I'm the CRO, so I'm the one looking after revenues. And so basically, that's the group founded around this. So we wanted to work in the institutional space, which at the time, I'm talking about, close to 4 years ago, but wasn't really a thing. There wasn't that many. But so we started off saying, okay, there is a opportunity here. You can do staking, but you can do it market neutral. Why should you risk your assets when you can basically hedge all your positions and it's free money because it's staking reward plus or minus funding rate? And so that seemed to be a very simple thing. And that was the idea. And so, but to build that idea, we needed to get the building blocks which are in the industries to work together. And so as an institutional player, you are bound by regulation to use a custody environment, either a custodian or have yourself a custody environment and manage it yourself. And that's where we realized that there is significant friction there. And so from starting as a company that wanted to be a validator, because that's our background, we ran hundreds of nodes at the time. Then we moved to being a custodian because we bought a custody license. We got regulated in Italy by MiCAR. Actually, at the time, it wasn't even MiCAR. It was before that. And then we instead identified a space. I love red and blue ocean strategies. So there was an amazing blue ocean there. And that was the space that doesn't really have a name, which is connectivity between institutional components. So an institutional yield provider like GlobalStake wants to connect to an institutional bank, aka custody environment. How do you do that? In today's world, we sit in a world where a digital asset holder sits in a custody environment, and that custody environment decides what you can do and what currencies, aka tokens, and what partners, aka yield providers or validators, you're able to interact. It's like saying your bank tells you can only store Swiss francs and you can only send them to these two shops. That's the situation we're in today. And so we basically thought, this is a significant friction point. We should try and tackle that. And that's how what we built came about. So basically what we have is that we've created a platform, and this platform tries to solve this friction. And that's, I'll start here before I shoot all my cartridges right away.
No, that's a super fascinating background. I did not know that you also came from the telecom world. So there's a lot in common with GlobalStake, because our co-founders also had that background.
We had lots of conversations about that, because at the end of the day, actually, if I just go back a bit to my background, what I built at the time is that I built something which was called the Star Hub, which was connecting all of the different telco operators in Italy at the time, and then we exported also to South America. And it was basically giving out short codes to mobile service providers, because the telcos at a certain point said, okay, that's it. We can no longer connect to more than 50, and all the APIs have to be updated, and everything doesn't work. And so let's give customer support, all of this. So basically what happens in all the industries that become more mature, some of these services are pushed to the edges, because you can't have it in edge computing and all this, but that's got nothing to do with it. But this is just moving the stuff out and having somebody who is specialized in doing that, because we are talking about the top 50 assets, which have a significant market cap. There is constant upgrades all the time. Ethereum keeps updating all the time, and some significant updates. Think about Pectra, the stuff that you can do now that you were not able to do before. I mean, there is like gigantic opportunities. And so those are, so I think that the concentration point of having specialized partners that deal with managing the APIs, making sure that everything is always reachable, is very important, because in a retail world where the service you get is best effort, this instead it's got to have SLAs. I can't think that my yield provider is going to go down, the UI is down, and I'm not able to say unstake. And maybe there's a market movement and I'm not able to do certain things. And so that's kind of where we are. So we think that that's what's missing and what we're out there to build, and what we have actually already built pretty much.
No, so that sounds fascinating in terms of that friction point, that pain point that you were able to identify and build this with Colossus. So I guess tell us more. Let's get into the weeds a little bit about how the tech works and what the market response has been, because I got to imagine the pain that you described before of being told you can only go to one of two banks is probably something that is a major frustration for some larger asset holders who are institutions or maybe family offices, and they can see that there are other opportunities out there. So I'd imagine that the reception to the Colossus Digital product has been quite robust, and a lot of people are excited about it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this question. So I'll start actually with, there's also a question of the whole ethos. The blockchain is about decentralized. What these large custody players were doing in the beginning, they were funneling everything to very few yield providers. And so basically that goes exactly in the opposite direction of decentralization. Because if you're going to put everything in the hands of 3 validators, great for the validator, but really bad for the market. So at the end of the day, what we're out there to do is we're out there to custody decentralization. Okay, now how do we do that? Basically, custody environments have APIs. These APIs allow you to craft a transaction. And so what we've done is that there is, in our view, there are 2 moments in a transaction: the crafting and the signing. So the crafting of the transaction is done with what is known as raw signing, but raw signing has a bad vibe to it. We call it pure signing, because that's what, every time that you sign a transaction, you are using some kind of a raw signing, which on top has the coders, lenses, and things. But at the bottom, it's always that same way. That is the only way in which you can create a transaction. Then, of course, for that transaction to be created in a safe way, what we're doing is we're mimicking the way that institutional custodians or asset holders would be working. So you have an operations team, so say 3 people working in different offices throughout the globe. Now they're crafting a transaction. So the 3 of them need to be able to craft a transaction independently. That transaction needs to be able to be recomposed, and for a system to verify that nothing has been changed, tampered with. Then for that, so we have multi-party crafting, and we have something called VSS, Verified Secret Chart, that basically recomposes the transaction, and it's a cryptographic function. If something has changed, it fails, which is what it should do. Then, of course, you have what we call the transaction length, because I want to make sure that I know that what I think I'm doing is what I'm doing. So the intent needs to, the outcome needs to match my intent. So the transaction length gives you the clear transaction, and as you know, and I assume who's watching, but the hash is a one-way function. So you cannot get from the hash to the clear transaction, and you can only have 1 hash for each clear transaction. So this means that if I show you the hash, the hash and the clear transaction, you can now recompute the clear transaction, make sure that it gets to the same hash. And in the middle, we give you the readable JSON file that tells you the function, staking, unstaking, redelegate, whatever you're doing, from where to where. So my wallet to the validator wallet validator address. Now, once all of these things are there, now we have proof that it's correct. Now, but you should not trust us. Nobody should trust anybody, because we're all about the trust economy. And the trustless economy, which is what we're in, is where you're able to verify your own transactions. Okay, so how do we do that? We have a decoder, which is a standalone piece of software, which should not be on the web, but it should be in the infrastructure of our customer. The customer can verify and therefore recompute the hash, and now you have mathematical proof, because that thing is not on the internet, it's open code, you can verify and check the code. Now you have mathematical proof that what you want to do, the operations team, is so the intent is what's the outcome. So now we have completed a verifiable transaction as the operations team. So my job as the operations team is finished. Now I put on the signer hat, and now the signer receives a notification inside their custody environment, whatever that is. Today we support Fireblocks, Ledger Enterprise, DFNS, and then we have also the possibility of signing with any kind of HSM. So say that you're a custodian allows you to sign an unsigned hash with a HSM, or you're a asset holder that has their own software HSM, you can sign the transaction the same. So now the signer gets this unsigned hash, say that we're using Fireblocks, I get it on my app. Now I have to verify that that hash is correct. So I will go back to the platform and I have exactly the same systems. I have the transaction length, the clear transaction, the JSON file, everything else, and I have the decoder. Now, me, the signer, I am now, I have mathematical proof that that is what I want to be signing. I can now sign. After which the transaction is resent to the dashboard that broadcasts the transaction. Everything is, of course, I've said it in a long way, but it basically lasts seconds or minutes, depending on how long the checking takes. That's it. So super simple. This gives our institutional customer a unified audit trail, because instead of going to different platforms, there is one platform. You have every single transaction that can be audited. You have timestamps. You've got everything that you need for your audit trails. You have it all in one location. So instead of having to use different UIs of different yield providers, you have everything centralized. And that is very interesting, because what's happening is that you can orchestrate yield and you orchestrate custody. So one of the things that we have discovered or found out by being on this market is that, for example, exchanges. The exchanges that we work with have 5 custody environments. So if you have 5 custody environments and you have 10 yield providers, the combination of that is a gigantic spaghetti complication of UIs. And now at the end of each month, the CFO comes in and says, okay, guys, I need the data, and the data needs to be synchronized to the minute. Now, how are you going to synchronize AVAX with ETH? AVAX pays at the end of the staking period. The other one is, these things are so complicated, but if at least everything is together, that simplifies that reporting line. And then on the other side, what we've seen is that asset holders are moving assets from one custody to the other because of the support that custody has and the other one does not. So think about the inefficiency of moving stuff just because you want to generate yield. And that's it does make sense that an asset holder has more than one custodian because of risk, because of other things, but not because one guy gives me yield on this asset, the other one gives me yield on that asset. And that's what's happening today. So that's another interesting use case.
So the product is obviously in a very great spot. So what would you say in the next year is your top 1, 2, or 3 priorities for the company at large?
Yes, we are, and thanks for that. We were definitely in a great spot, but it's a very complicated spot because everybody, it's again typical industry evolution. Now everybody wants to converge with everybody, and so you're already seeing exchanges buying validators, banks buying validators buying news outlets. There's all kinds of stuff because everybody is saying, okay, how do I get to this customer? We're all competing with the same customers. So we're kind of in the middle of all this. And so it's going to be, I think it's going to be very, the strategy is going to be very tiptoeing around and making sure that we find the right partners. And so that's why we're very excited about the GlobalStake partnership, because there are not that many real institutional validators out there that have the pedigree to be able to talk to large banks and large financial institutions. And that's, I think, what's going to be, the market is going to split sooner or later. So you're going to have retail shops, fantastic, they're the ones that created everything, so hat off to that. But the institutional is going to have to be a totally different game. So how we see it in the future is connecting more custody environments, connecting more yield opportunities. And since we started only with validators, but now we've already released Lido v3, which is de facto DeFi because you're doing restaking. You have the pools, which is of course very institutional. And then it's going to be lending, borrowing, Aave, Morpho, and many others. as the appetite of institutional capital goes in that direction, we want to be there to make sure that everything can be fluid and can generate the revenues that they want to generate. Now, this is interesting for us. For example, we speak to a lot of foundations. And so the thing is always, okay, you're a foundation, you're launching a great project. Would you want to be supported day one from these custody environments? That is a very compelling offering, because if they want to attract institutional capital, it can be done, but you need to be part of that system. Otherwise, how are they going to access you? So.
Well, great. That makes a lot of sense. And that was a phenomenal answer to my question. It really checked all the boxes that I was looking for. It's a bummer, we could talk for a long time about this product and our partnership, which we're very happy to have. But at this point, we're up against our time. So
yeah, I leave you one more feature that just came out that I just want to share before I let you go. The backup. So the backup feature, which maybe I started in the beginning, but I just want to underline that because it's very interesting. Because up to now, when things go south in terms of technology and some APIs have to be shut off, asset holders are left without a way of unstaking or being able to get their assets back. And so the backup feature, which we've developed, I think is going to be super important in the future. And so thank you for this window to allow me to speak about it.
Absolutely. I mean, to that point, where can the people that are listening learn more about specific features and products that they want to know about Colossus and just follow along?
Colossus.digital, and we've got docs, and of course we're always LinkedIn and X. So happy to answer any questions that might come, and thank you very much for having given me this time, and looking forward to making a great partnership, and as I see is already starting with GlobalStake, and I'm sure that we'll unlock some amazing things.
Indeed, we will. And I got to say, just we'll make sure to link all of those socials on the full YouTube video when this does appear, as well as the clips. We'll be sure to tag you, Lorenzo, and or Colossus when we produce these on the show. For those who are watching or listening, the one thing that you did not get to see, unfortunately, is Lorenzo's incredible tango skills, which I got to witness firsthand in Buenos Aires. But seriously, thank you for those who are tuning in and watching or listening to the show today. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Decentralounge. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.